Hi, welcome back to the podcast School of Love, where we want to help you create parent-child relationships where you could talk about anything, especially about sex. In this episode, I have Sebastian and Daria Mahler, who just started their own podcast called High Noon Couples. This is dedicated to helping you in your marriage. In this episode, we talk about how they understood sex growing up and then through puberty, the struggles they faced. And I really hope you'll stay to the end because that's where we get to what would have helped them during those struggles. What could their parents have done, or what kind of outreach did they need? Yeah, I'm really grateful for this great brother and sister and how vulnerably they share on this podcast. And I really hope that you can take away some things for your own parenting. I know I took some things away myself, how much I really need to support my kids and invest in this relationship. So let's get started. Hi, welcome to the podcast School of Love. Today I am here with Daria and Sebastian Mahler. Welcome.
Hi.
And yeah, can you guys introduce yourselves just shortly for those who don't know you so well yet?
Sure.
Ladies first.
Right. Hi, I'm Daria Mahler. I'm 32. I'm Austrian, living in Munich with my husband. And we also work for High Noon as High Noon Couples. And we're happy to be here.
Nice.
Yeah, my name is Sebastian Mahler, as she said, and I'm 34. I am, right? Yeah, 34.
Yes.
Half American, half German, and I'm a physiotherapist, and we're living actually an hour south of Munich, next to the mountains.
Yes. Beautiful
So, yeah.
place.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. You guys are in a postcard city, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so you guys just started to work for High Noon Couples, but you've been really connected to High Noon and blessing work and everything. And so, yeah, that's why I wanted to talk to you guys today about sex ed then versus now. So, like, how did you grow up learning about sex? And then I assume now it's different. I mean, with High Noon Couples, I'm sure there's much more of an open conversation or culture towards sexuality. So I wanted to ask first, in a nutshell, how would you say you felt about sex-related topics as a child, for both of you? So maybe around the age of 12, and also versus now, how do you feel about those topics now?
Let me start now.
Okay. So, at age around 12, I was in 6th grade, and I believe mostly, I was always into nature, animals. We had so many animal books, and we watched a lot of documentaries. And I really tried to remember, like, how did I get to know about what sex is, and and the more I try to remember it, I'm not sure, but I know that animals do it, and that I just remember, I think the first times I knew about, okay, living beings can multiply, I knew it from animals. And I guess I always assumed, okay, with people, it's kind of, with human beings, it's kind of similar. And of course, in growing up in our movements during the workshops, we always heard about the fall of Adam and Eve and that it was something sexual. I don't have memories of being in school and learning specifically about sex there. Although, of course, it came up in certain age, like in certain classes, it came up as a topic. But the first time when I really understood it, I think it had to be a mix of my interest in the animal kingdom and also in workshops, in a sense. But it's really hard to go back there and like think about it.
So it was kind of, would you say it was a natural understanding, like, oh, that's just how nature works, or
I think so. Yeah, I think that's I think it was very natural. It came about through, again, documentaries and just my interest in nature. But then, of course, talking about the fall, talking about unethical sexuality, that's a different topic, right? But when I think about the beginnings where I got to know what sex means and what it means to be able to multiply and then as a person have a family, I think that just came very early on, I guess, through a natural understanding.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's difficult to say. Like, I didn't grow up in the movement. I didn't know that it was a second gen until I was 17 or almost 17. And so for us in the family, it was natural, like with nudity. So for us, it was okay or kind of natural to run around naked, and also seeing my parents naked. I never felt comfortable about that. It changed maybe in puberty, and also my parents weren't so natural about it anymore. As soon my sister and I went into puberty, but before that, it was always very natural. And I remember I was really young when I first time did masturbation, and I didn't actually know what that is. And even though I feel like my family was open to talk about it, I never felt open to talk about it with my parents. Like, I felt not. I had a good relationship, and I still have a good relationship, but it was not in this kind of area, let's say, that I felt comfortable to talk with them, or let's say more with my mom than with my dad. Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of like, yeah, back then you guys grew up hearing about sex, but it was pretty natural, and nudity also. But then during puberty and then getting in contact with masturbation, these topics were just a sort of not taboo, but
Not talked
mixed with
about.
shame. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you felt like you couldn't be open about it. Yeah, do you think you could have spoken to anyone about it? Like, was there anyone in your life that you could ever open up to?
Not for me, not at all.
No.
No.
Okay. And yeah, so like as you grew up, like who do you think influenced your understanding of sexuality? Like Basti, you were saying Discovery channels or nature documentaries. Was that like the main influence, or like do you think also your parents? And did you totally block off all what your peers were saying? Yeah, like who kind of really built up and influenced your understanding of sex?
I remember, I guess I was maybe 14, 15. I remember when I started masturbating, it was quite, yeah, as you said, it was very mixed with shame, and I could have never thought of telling my parents about it, and or actually anyone else. I remember having one or two friends who told me about it in church, that they had struggles with it or that they were doing it and they felt very ashamed and alone about it. But I remember I didn't have the courage to share with them that I was going through the same thing. And sorry, what was the question again?
Who
Yeah,
had
just
influence
like,
on you?
yeah,
Right.
your understanding of sex itself and anything to do with it, like who was influencing it. I mean, would you say like you really could feel like this is something that belongs to God, or like this is something I'm looking forward to in my marriage? Or was there like some shame also around the understanding of sex? And yeah, and then also with masturbation, then thanks for sharing. Like you were saying, you couldn't bring up the courage to talk about it. Yeah, so where did that shame come from, right? If you can, I don't know, kind of
Yeah, sure.
answer all those things.
I remember being on workshops and having the boys' talks where only guys would meet up, and then it would be a very short period of time in the workshop, maybe an hour or two, where we, I guess, would share about more deeper issues, and then at some point someone would just ask like, am I the only one who's struggling with this? And then everyone would raise their hands. And I remember that was very eye-opening, relieving, and insightful in a way. And I remember it would have been nice for that topic to be more addressed in the winter workshops that I grew up in, but it was rather more a very like a side note of it. Like the workshop had its lectures and of course the fall and everything, but yeah, talking about the real life struggles that we were all facing, it was just very side topic in a sense, where the lecturers wouldn't dive into. It wasn't really their focus. And that was, I guess, something I just grew up in a world where you just have to take care of yourself in the sense that you want to keep your purity for the matching and blessing. And the struggles, they're there, but they will disappear, but let's not talk about it too much. And also I didn't feel free to talk with my parents about it. But that wasn't because they were avoiding the topic. They were rather encouraging me to see the topic of sexuality in a principled kind of way when they knew that the topic came up in the school. When we had this sex education, I don't remember what age I was or what grade, but it must also have been around maybe 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. But I remember they were willing to talk about it, and they were happy when I would share, what they were teaching in school, and then they would talk about it. But I also felt very uncomfortable around it. I didn't really feel natural, like, oh yeah, I have questions, I will go to my parents. There wasn't any foundation about that topic where I was feeling comfortable to talk about them about it. It was rather the foundation of the workshops and the principle, and I knew they had the same understanding. And it was rather difficult, I would say.
I see. So do you think like this sort of shame maybe came from seeing the difference of what principle should be and then being faced with the struggles and seeing the difference between that maybe? Or do you think, I'm just wondering like what would have really supported you at that time? Would you think like if your parents maybe brought up the struggling side themselves, would that have been helpful for you? Or do you wish maybe an older mentor, not necessarily your parents, if maybe an older brother were there for you at the time, would that been helpful for you? Maybe someone else saying, it's common to struggle like this, and here's some steps how to get out of it, or, I don't know. I'm just wondering, like, what do you wish was there for you at that time?
Back then, when I was younger, I heard rumors of there's something called high noon. Like they were quite early on in the minds of the German communities, and they were doing their work. But I didn't really get in touch with them at that time. It was years later. But exactly. I guess it would have been the best if I would have had a very natural, more open relationship with my parents around that topic. But I guess second best would have been definitely something like a mentor or a group or just some sort of program, I guess, where I would be more regularly in confrontation with that topic and then feel less ashamed about it, more open about it, and just have a more healthy give and take with that.
Yeah. And Daria, it's interesting from your side because you didn't really have these lectures, right? You didn't grow up with these kind of lectures. But you still didn't feel like you could share about it with your parents, or anyone. What do you think would have helped you or supported you at that time?
We've been talking about that before. Now, during breakfast, and it's really difficult to think of what could have helped me, like in the circumstances I was. I guess a different relationship with my parents, on where I could feel safe to share. But yeah, it's really difficult to know on, because we didn't have the community where I could have gone to another auntie or to a friend. I mean, I did have friends and very close friends, but there were also very strong Catholics. And my parents were kind of going more into esoteric, and so also there was kind of, I didn't feel like free sharing with them as well. So it's, yeah, I can more kind of say what I would like, what I wish for our children in future is kind of creating from the beginning on this kind of bond, and where our children can feel safe and also see, okay, I feel safe to share things that bother, and where I as a mom or Bas as a father really invest consciously in the relationship, and also where we create this culture of being vulnerable, but also being able to ourselves, and it's okay for who we are, and that not despite the, in German you say corners and Ecken und Kanten. I'm not sure how you say that in English.
Rough edges.
Rough edges. It's not despite I love you. I love the whole package, and so this, and where they can feel connected, but also they can have me. Now there's, when we were kids there was not high noon yet, but now there is high noon. So where they can either talk on workshops later on about that, or where we can learn for ourselves better with School of Love on how to address this topic. So I guess in this way I can maybe put it better.
Yeah, it's interesting because it sounds like sex wasn't really a taboo topic for either of your families, right? Like you guys could actually talk about it, but it was more just this kind of support through puberty and trying to, let's say, give nutrition to our purity, like to really take care of it. That's where you needed support, right? And that's also where I see parents are they have so much potential to be a key person, because, we're so connected. They gave birth to us and they're pretty present in our lives. Usually we see them every day. But I do feel like this unfortunately is often not happening, right? This sort of mentorship as a parent, like, I'm going to support you. I know it's challenging at this time when you go through puberty, or you're faced with things like masturbation or pornography, or maybe going out with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. So I think it's great if as parents we can just recognize, it's really challenging, and let's be there for our kids, right? Rather than saying, like, of course it is good to know the principle and the ideal, but not to teach it like, hey, this is the principle, let's do this, without recognizing that we really need to just be there to support each other. Was there any kind of turning point in understanding of sex, or wanting to maybe prepare for the blessing, or like any kind of turning points in your understanding of sexuality and maintaining purity?
Well, we talked about that also before the interview, and I think for me the realization that sex wasn't just the physical aspect of it, but also the aspect where you have to, or sex becomes much more rewarding when you're emotional connected to your partner. And I think for us in the beginning, after our 40 days, we weren't emotionally connected enough, or let's put it differently. I thought just us being together, like living our lives, would be enough to, like, would be enough connection to then, yeah, live a fulfilling sexual relationship. But it turned out that I had to put so much more, or that there had to be so much more effort and emotional connection beforehand, like before having sex, and then that would, I guess, work out actually, like as being a good sexual experience. And I didn't think about that beforehand, before I was blessed. And yeah, that was interesting. Like having sex and then afterwards saying, yeah, actually, I don't know, I still feel kind of disconnected from you, or it wasn't really deep and good, and I just don't know why. And then we would talk about it and then realize, yeah, actually the day was kind of crazy and we didn't take time to listen to each other properly. And that was kind of a turning point, I guess, because I realized, okay, sex has so much more dimensions to it than just being there, like showing up and having sex. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess for me it was, I had maybe two. Like the first one is when I heard the principles for the first time. And like what really caught me was actually the fall. Because I almost, when I was around 12 years old, I was almost converted to Catholicism.
Catholicism.
Thank you. But then I had a few questions, and especially like with the fall and Satan and stuff, and I asked the priest, and his answer was, "You just believe, you don't ask." And that was for me. I was like, no, sorry, this is not gonna work for me. So when I heard the first time the fall, it made so much sense to me, and then I very quick, like I understood, like I came to know the principle when I was 17, but to come to the point that I really decided that I was like, I'm gonna leave my, let's say, old life behind, and I want to follow really truly two parents, and I want to go to the blessing. I was 22. Almost 23, and I went then to Changpyeong. I was in several workshops, and I went almost 5 years to SDF because I felt like I had to redeem myself, or kind of become pure again, because I've really felt dirty, because I had relationships before, and so that was, and a lot of pain was created around sexuality in that time, and coming to SDF and understanding God's heart better, and then also getting into contact with High Noon, which was through SDF, I think in my second year or third year. I don't remember. It was a workshop in Glanov in Poland. And there I kind of got a new understanding about sexuality and or this concept of sexual integrity. And I did struggle a lot with porn and masturbation at that time. Yeah, it was, I forgot what a point got from, what was my point, but I kind of understood better that sex is something sacred, and when Basti and I got blessed, or before even, we've, not from the beginning on, but we shared then in our matching process that our challenges and difficulties with sexual integrity. And we watched also that 24-hour challenge from High Noon at that time. And it was really good. And then they decided to join an Ascent group. And I was always kind of not wanting to go because there was so much shame around it. And there was a point I shared with my mom about it. And one time was, it felt really good afterwards. But then I think a year or 2 years later, she asked again. And it was like, she asked me, how are you doing? I was like, yeah, it's an up and down. And then she was like, no, you have to actually stop that. And you have to be more determined. And I felt kind of judged in that moment, so I said, okay, I'm not going to share with her anymore. But then in the group, I had a facilitator who didn't struggle actually with that, with porno masturbation. So first I thought like, okay, I don't want to have her as a facilitator. I knew that beforehand, and she knows that I actually shared that in another as a testimony before. But she was so cool. She was so nice, and the whole group was so nice. And I really enjoyed being in that group where all the sisters were kind of the same age as I was, and I felt so welcomed, and I could just share, and it was just good enough. And she facilitated this so well. And I was then, I think, for 4 quarters, I was then also facilitator for a Zen group. And it felt, so much easier then to come out of my shadow. So like, even though maybe I was still having difficulties with it, it was still like, and it's something I need to work on, but I felt like more safer to share with it, about it. And because porno masturbation is like just a band-aid, and I realized now that it was something where I was craving for connection, and where I can just be myself, and where I can feel safe. And I feel that in our relationship with Basti, even already before going to the blessing, we created this space where we both could just be ourselves. And, we love the whole package, not just the good parts of it, but, where when I noticed, okay, this, even though like after our blessing in marriage, is like now in our marriage time, when there is coming up this feeling of wanting to masturbate or something, it's like, okay, I know this is just an aid. So I know that's not like I'm possessed by Satan or something. And I need to look for the connection that I need, because usually my that I've learned from home is like when I've kind of feeling emotional, or there's not the space for it, so I withdraw. And I've learned that I don't need to withdraw. I can share. And that took some time to come to the point where I feel like, okay, I can really say what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And just to kind of recap, like I'm seeing, like trying to visualize your timeline of kind of your relationship with sexuality. It was like first quite normal, right, growing up. And then puberty, it's like kind of maybe becoming a bit unsteady. Mm-hmm. And then pain developed around it. And then you were kind of shooting up because you said you learned the principle and you felt like, wow, okay, it makes sense. Still faced with struggles. But then once you really got in touch with High Noon and a circle of people that you could be unfiltered with, then, would you say then this pain kind of left? Or, I mean, you said you then could understand that these kind of feelings that draw you towards these habits of porn and masturbation, which brought you shame, that you could then just seek the connection that you wanted instead. Would you say then, the pain kind of was healed, or, because you said there was like a lot of pain associated with sex at some point, right, in your teen years. Can you add on to that part?
Sure. I think going to Ascend, for example, was the starting point. Mm-hmm. Because it is great to have this space, this bubble, let's call it, But it's important to not just like having it in a bubble, but like creating it more outside also with friends and family and people around. Because I feel like even though I was like, not even though, like for me was this Ascent program from High Noon really a good starting point. And it's like with everything in life, like especially when it's a trauma or pain or something, and I feel especially with sexuality is it takes time to heal. And I felt like from the point on when I joined Ascent, which was maybe not even a half a year before the blessing, until maybe a year ago or maybe 1.5 years ago, I felt like this is a time where I was able to heal. And I felt like especially at the beginning in our relationship, there was a lot of things came up from like trauma, and but there was it takes time. It takes time. But I feel like especially like this non-sexual touch was for me really, really healing. That when we touch or cuddle and it's not going over into sex, but it's kind of holding the space and letting me out my inner child basically, was really helpful on healing that. And now for me, it's even though we're cuddling, it's non-sexual touch. For me, it's much easier going into the sexual energy than before.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that myself. But yeah, I mean, we all just really want to feel unconditionally loved. And I think that's one starting point to feel that in the marriage. And yeah, so you said you created this safe space in your relationship. How did you create that? Like, did Ascend take you through a process, or did you guys find your own way to create that safe space together?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I guess both of us have done a lot of work before the blessing on understanding where certain traumas coming from, as well as triggers and learning to communicate. Like I have done a coaching certification. Basti was doing therapy, and also then later on, I was also doing therapy just because I saw how much it helped him, and I was actually really jealous on the progress he made. So I thought, okay, I need to find something that as well. But I guess is that like I was in the matching process before, and I always felt like I had to impress this brother, and I never felt that with Basti. I felt always good enough with him. It was so. It created a lot of insecurity, or also not insecurity actually. It created a lot of vulnerability, and that was very unsettling because I was not used to that kind of vulnerability. But I guess what I felt helped me a lot was this unwavering commitment on one side, and also that I've never take this scene on I'm good enough, and I always felt as like he's good enough. And I felt like when we started this saying on this phrase on I love you whole, like all your rough edges and all the other stuff, and or your loving and support, I love all of it, was a really beautiful phrase, I guess, to put it together, that who you are as a person, you're good enough, and I love you. And I know we are both not perfect, but we support each other to grow, and we're not expecting each other to be perfect or to fulfill our expectations. It's more kind of, we talk about that. Like having these conversations. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's really redefining love, right? Like what we understand from love as we grow up and consume social media, not social media, but just films and what have you. But because it's really just really that commitment of being there for each other, growing together, and always saying, yeah, I'm going to be here for you and support you no matter what, right? Um, that
It's
sounds
like
really
it's funny when because you said like watching movies and stuff, and so often we watch movies or series, and then there's a couple who has like so stupid thoughts or like fights. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that we're not that kind of couple. that we don't have this kind of struggles or difficulties. I mean, sure, we do fight, and we do have difficulties and disagreements. And even though I sometimes say we don't fight, but I mean actually we don't fight like my parents, like screaming at each other or throwing stuff at each other, or even like this, kind of being very loud or expressive. But it's still like not like how like often I think just talk with each other. Don't assume anything, just talk. But
yes. It's a skill that has to be
yeah.
practiced often. I mean, you guys are now doing high noon couples, and which is really awesome. Everybody, check them out. When is your first podcast coming out, by the way?
Hopefully this week, otherwise next
Okay.
week.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, and so I'm just wondering, because you guys had your own journey going through not just understanding sex and sexuality, but also, yeah, going through the struggles that come with growing up and with different degrees of support, right? Most of us don't get the support or reach out to receive this support that we need, although I feel like that is getting better and better, right? Especially through what High Noon offers. Do you have any advice for someone who wants to build a new perspective with their culture around sex, or maybe with their habits in their own lives, right? Yeah, maybe they need a new perspective. Maybe they have also pain. They associate sex with pain or shame or difficulty, right? Because maybe they see all the struggles. So yeah, if someone wants to just change their perspective, change their culture, what would you say to them? Like, where can they start?
Yeah, well, definitely High Noon has so much to offer in that area for anyone in any life situation, like being single or being
Preparing for the blessing, like with core.
preparing, or then being blessed also. So High Noon is a great resource. Of course, there is from the BFD, we have a lot of resources as well. The Bob, yeah, which stands for
Build our
Oh, our
blessing.
blessing.
Build Our Blessing. Yeah,
Sorry about that.
exactly. And yeah, I think we have as a community, we have a lot of resources. And I think back then when I was young, I think we already also had a few resources, not so much like today, but we had some. And I guess I wished that they were advertised better back then. Yeah, I think that's what I wished for, because I doubt that we didn't have anything back then. It just wasn't very known. And I believe that's why a lot of us in our age struggled so much. And it's great to see that the youngsters, which are a bit younger than us, that they just so naturally pop up at all these events and programs. So I think that's the best development that we could have hoped for. And yeah.
Also, just one thing is one book we will actually have a episode on our podcast is sheet music. We have started listening into it. It's from a psychiatrist, I think, but he's also a pastor in America, and how he explains the differences for like it's he really talks more really about marital sex and relation in different kinds of desires and so on. So it's really nice. It's really cool, and we haven't finished it yet, but it helped me also a lot to understand better for what he needs and what I need, and it needs to start somewhere. So I feel like, okay, I have to start somewhere. So yeah, it doesn't always have to go from the husband. It can also go from the wife, and yeah, that was really interesting. That was really good. So wait for the episode.
Yeah, wait for that episode. Keep music with High Noon Couples. I'll listen to it too. Yeah, that's awesome. So what you were saying, Basti, is really to reach out, right? To reach out, because creating this new perspective, I think on your own is really tough, right? I mean, we can do a lot of work, which is also necessary, but I think we do need support.
Yeah.
People that will just listen to us, accept us as we are. Yeah, and that's what High Noon offers, right? But yeah, I mean, also, if you feel like you have that with your parents, I think that's also a great place to start. And I think also one thing that's really key to take away from this for parents that are listening is just seeing how, from the child's perspective, how difficult it is to bring these things up, to get it in motion, like any kind of struggle to do with purity. And so how key it is for us parents then to start it ourselves, you know, to really reach out to our kids and be like, hey, you know, if you're struggling with anything, you can talk to me about it, you know. I think to just really pave that path and leave it open, it makes it so much easier for our kids. It sounds like that would have been really helpful for your guys' situation. And yeah, but also to recognize like how difficult that is as a child, right? Because, you know, you grow up and you have these survival instincts, you know, to just really be accepted by your parents. And when you feel like these kind of struggles will lead you to not being accepted, how can you talk about them? So yeah, I think that's just something that all of us parents can really try to keep in consideration. I wanted to ask one last thing, if you guys can, think of, what do you wish you had learned about sex, or what do you wish your parents had said to you? Perhaps at this time when these struggles started, or like when puberty hit. Is there something like, not just one phrase, I guess, but you know, just to maybe in some ways, you know, create this open space, or to just kind of give you permission to open up maybe. But yeah, is there something you can think of, like, you wish that your parents had said, or that you had known more about sex?
I guess on one side, definitely, is what you already said, is having that my parents would have approached me often, or kind of this having this active part and having a conversation, because it's like when it starts somewhere, then I'm like, oh, okay, my parents already have started this conversation, so I feel like I can talk with them already, because as a child, it's really like I didn't feel comfortable to do that, because it was kind of the culture to do that in our family. So and I guess one other thing, especially for me not growing up in our movement, was that I didn't know that sexuality, or my sexuality, is actually something holy, and that it is something special, not just throw around with, like how we would learn it in our society, often, or in movies and stuff. So, yeah, that's for me.
Really good points. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about the question just now, and I wonder how much it would have helped me if, let's say, my dad, if he would have sat me down, like maybe in the very early days and weeks after I started with masturbation, if he would have sat me down just by coincidence, because it would be regular, and he would like ask me how I felt, how I'm doing. A part of me wants to believe that really would help and that I would have opened up. And another part would have maybe just say, oh yeah, that's something that I will get rid of again, and you don't have to know about it. So I'm not sure. I believe it had to be years and years of investment of like open sharings and really being interested in the feelings of the child, or in this example of me, that I would feel that I would feel comfortable to open up with that. But yeah.
Just because, can I say something?
Sure.
Yeah. Like, I guess it really starts like from small on with kids, because when I think about our conversations, when I ask you, how are you doing? You answer really deep. You don't say, oh yeah, I'm fine. It's like, no, or yeah, this and this happened. But when I really ask, how are you really doing? You immediately know I ask you, how is your inner state? How you feel emotionally? How do you feel maybe spiritually? Or where do you feel certain things in your body? And this is now after almost 5 years of our marriage. And with kids, when we learn that beforehand, I feel like this is also can happen when we have this kind of conversation or kind of talks. And then when I ask maybe in the future our kids, how are you doing? How do you really feel? Where are your emotions? Where do you feel these emotions in your body? Then it's maybe also much easier than to talk about things that are maybe uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, and also as parents, we also have to model that as well, right?
Yeah, right.
This is uncomfortable for me to talk about, but I'm gonna, because I find it important. We have to lead by example. But that sounds like a really good thing to start, already as a couple, to just already answer genuinely how I'm really doing and bring that culture into the family. Yeah. So I think that's really great what you guys shared, of what you want, what you wish kind of your parents had laid out there for you. But yeah, not to blame anybody. I mean, I think every generation is meant to get better and better. And our kids will also be saying, yeah, my parents did this, but could have been, a bit better. And so I'm doing it like this now. But I mean, also you mentioned, Basti, like sometimes, you don't know if you would have opened up to your dad or you would have. And it's tricky as a parent. Sometimes our kids are closed off to us, but I just want to root for everybody to really not give up. Just keep reaching out. I think that's our job. We just have to keep trying, keep going, always showing our kids, I love you no matter what. We can talk about anything whenever you're ready. Yeah. And it just made me think, today I have a bit of time with some of my kids, like not all together, just half of them. And I should just do something something I know that makes them feel loved, like buy them a croissant or something in a cafe. Like if there's the opportunity, why not? And just do those little things. And I know some of my kids, they only open up when they really super duper feel safe. Then they'll tell me things. Otherwise, just like this, it's not as likely. And so, it's really good if we can create that open, safe culture. So thank you so much for everything you guys shared, and really excited for High Noon Couples. how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, we have for now just a landing page, but we are working on the website. It's going to be and the sub website, page on.
Sub-page on High Noon.
Thank you. And where also the podcast will be available as well as the resources. And otherwise, you can also send an email to couples@heinun.org. And yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll link that in the episode notes. And yeah, also a survey is that
yeah.
still relevant? We can.
Yes, definitely.
You're always probably updating that. So yeah, we can share that too. And yeah,
Great.
all the
Thank
best.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks,
your work.
Amelia.
Spread the word and stay connected through YouTube, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and our newsletter, which you can subscribe to on our website, schooloflove.org. Really hope to hear from you.